This is Covering the Spread, part of the FanDuel Podcast Network.
The regular season went out with a bang last night with the Lions and the Packers. I, of course, had some money riding that game, wanted the Lions to cover that spread, and honestly, just a thrilling game from start to finish, and honestly, just a good season. A fun NFL season, of course. The DeMar Hamlin stuff was really tough to swallow and really tough to watch all that occur, but overall, this NFL season, just phenomenal from start to finish, and I am excited for this postseason. The wild card matchups may not be the world's most exciting, but I love that Chargers-Jags game. Got some stuff we'll talk about for that one later on. I think that there are a lot of fun teams in the NFL this year, not included in that game even. So we're going to break down what my numbers say about the wild card weekend from a betting perspective, let you know where I'm seeing value over at FanDuel Sportsbook, check in on the futures market, and get you set to play some bets before this weekend. Welcome on into Covering the Spread. That's right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and numberFire.com. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire. Break down the wild card weekend from a betting perspective and let you know what my numbers are seeing in terms of the opening numbers over at FanDuel Sportsbook. We'll break down the wild card first look, take a look at the Super Bowl futures market, and also recap a good week on the show for this past week. Look back at results there in just 1 second. But first, a reminder to make sure you are subscribed to Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcasts. Beginning this week, NBA going to be covered on the show. We'll have Tom Vecchio swinging by most Wednesdays to break down his read on the NBA, get some player prop discussion, get some spreads, get some totals. Tomorrow, Brandon Gadula coming on for a little twofer. We're going to talk some NBA with Brandon as well, but also talk about the PGA. The 70 Open is coming up this week, so golf is back, NBA is back, and still 3 weekly NFL shows. The first look, we'll have the full preview on Thursday, player prop show on Friday. So a lot of good stuff. Still daily shows here for Covering the Spread as we get into the NFL postseason with more NBA and more PGA on the way, along with all of the NFL you've come to discuss. So check that out by subscribing to Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcasts. Also, if you're looking for some discussion around the national championship, TCU versus Georgia for tonight, we did record that last Wednesday with Dr. Ed Feng. Find that by searching for Covering the Spread or looking for that over on the FanDuel YouTube page. Looking to get more out of the NFL this season? Well, now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's free bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It is safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to touchdown scores to over-under yards. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. So don't miss out on the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in free bets when you join FanDuel. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. First online real money wager only. Refund issued is non-withdrawable free bets that expire in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit FanDuel.com/RG. In Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. In Connecticut, 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat. In Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT. In Kansas and Wyoming, 1-800-522-4700 or ksgamblinghelp.com in Kansas. In Louisiana, 1-877-770-STOP. In Maryland, mdgamblinghelp.org. In New York, 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. And in West Virginia, go to 1-800-GAMBLER.net. Now, we're going to start things off here by going through what my numbers are saying about the wild card weekend. And we'll go through some futures, and that will also tie into one of the bet for this weekend, potentially making down the road. We begin the postseason the same way we finished the regular season. That is by betting on the Jacksonville Jaguars. And that didn't work this past weekend because I had the Jags -6. But in terms of the money line, my model's been behind the Jags all season long, and we are not stopping right now. I want the Jags, the money line, at +104 against the Chargers. I think the Jags should be favored in this game. Both of my models actually say that should be the case. Right now, I'm assuming Mike Williams does sit for the Chargers in this game, and I assume that Joey Bosa winds up playing. If I make those assumptions right now, I've got the Jags favored by almost 4 in one model, which seems aggressive. And in the other model, I have Jacksonville also by 4. Okay, so they're both aggressive. We are in on the Jags here for this one, but I don't disagree. And this model's been pretty good on the Jags this year. This will be the 11th time my model has shown value on the Jags money line. The Jags are 9-1 in those previous 10 games. And the one loss was when they were plus 360 against the Chiefs. And most of the reason that the model is high in the Jags comes down to their passing offense. The Jags are in the 79th percentile of early down passing efficiency that's adjusted for schedule. The Chargers are 55th and now might not have Mike Williams for this game. The Chargers are the better team on late downs. Their late down success rate is higher, adjusted for schedule again, but the gap there is not huge. Defensively, neither team is very good. I kind of think the Jags be able to run the ball here with Travis Etienne. Obviously, they did nothing against the Titans in that regard, but that's a very different matchup than what you get with the Chargers. So I think the Jags should be able to run, should be able to throw. If they're pretty even everywhere except passing offense, even before accounting for Mike Williams, I'm going to take the home team. I don't have a huge bump for home field in my model, but the Jags are at home. I think they're the better passing offense right now. They run a better scheme that does not require heroics from their quarterback on late downs. I'm assuming Mike Williams does not play. So if Mike Williams does wind up being good to go, that could shift things more towards the Chargers. But again, like a 4-point error or a 5-point error on this spread right now. So, again, Bosa, I'm also assuming is in. If he winds up being out, that would change things too. So the model overall this year has had a good read on this Jags team. It likes them in this one as well. So I'm going to take the Jags money line, and I'm going to say one more time, but I also should hedge and say at least one more time, because you never know. The Jags win this game. Maybe we're talking about them once again in a much tougher matchup coming up in the divisional round. But at least for this week, we are back on our Jags once again, plus 104, the money line against the Chargers. I've got a couple of bets that I like in the Bucs-Cowboys game on Monday night. Those are the Bucs plus 3 and the under at 45.5. And the Bucs plus 3, you can get it at minus 115, so you're paying a bit more there. I do like the minus 115 at plus 3 more than the money line, though, especially when I think this game could be lower scoring. The two models have this game at 1.62 and 0.23. The Cowboys favored in both. So it does think the Cowboys should be favored here. But the better model is the one that views this as being closer to a field goal. So 1.62 points in the model that has tested better so far this year. But the other model, the one that says the Cowboys should be favored by just 0.23 points, has been very high on Dallas this year. So I was kind of surprised to see value on the Bucs in this game in that model specifically. The Bucs defense, though, they're up to 6th in my model's power rankings. That's one spot lower than Dallas. And Dallas, the secondary is banged up. So their ranking 5th may actually be a little bit flimsy once we add in injuries later in the week. And the Cowboys secondary, that's banged up. The Dallas offense, they're definitely better. No pushback in that regard. That's definitely the better unit than the Bucs. I just don't think that the gap there is big enough to justify the Cowboys being a full field goal favorite on the road. When you combine what the data is saying, my data is saying, I guess at least, with the narrative around Dallas right now, where, they can't play outdoors, they can't play on grass. I think that's, honestly, those narratives are pretty dumb. I don't want to buy into that here. But I think that narrative is probably an indicator that we're going to see this number get to 2.5. And you don't want to bet based on vibes, and that's kind of a vibes-based assessment, I would say. But you can judge where the market will move based on stuff like that, anecdotal stuff. So I think this number will get to 2.5. So I'm showing value at 3. I expect it to get to 2.5. So I expect to get some closing line value here. And that's good enough for me to take the Bucs at plus 3, even with that being minus 115 right now. As for the under at 45.5, my totals model for this game has it at 42.63. That's almost 3 points of value. We do get it under a key number of 44. 45 not as big because it's like a 28-17 score. So 44 very much the bigger key number to get under. But I think that is enough wiggle room for me to feel good about that. I respect both these defenses a lot. Just mentioned that the Bucs are up to 6th in my one model. The Cowboys are 5th there. A couple cases for the over here would be that the pace in this game will be very high. We're going to see probably a lot of plays here. I think that's a good thing for the over. The Bucs do throw at an above average rate on early downs. The injuries in Dallas' secondary, all those things do combine to make you at least pause before taking the under here. But Neither offense is flawless. They're playing outdoors with 7-mile-per-hour winds. It's not a perfect setup for offense, and that's enough for me to take the under here. So I just don't see either offense pumping out a ton of explosive plays here. Explosive plays are what you need to get an over, and these two teams don't necessarily bask in that kind of offense. So under 45.5, you can get that at -110 right now. I think that is also the right way to play this game. So the three bets I want to lock in right now are the Jags money line at +104. I got the Bucks +3 at -115, and under 45.5 for Cowboys versus Bucks, which you can get at -110 if you shop around. And I do have one more bet that I might want to add, but I think there is another way to bet that team. So let's take a look at what the futures market is saying right now over at FanDuel Sportsbook. We got the Chiefs, the Super Bowl favorites. They are +330. The Bills are +420. Eagles +500. 49ers +550. Bengals +750. And the Cowboys 13-1. And the reason I stopped there is because we've talked a lot, and we've been talking about power rankings on this show where there's a tier of 6 at the top. The tier of 6 of those 6 teams: Chiefs, Bills, Eagles, 49ers, Bengals, Cowboys, not in that order. It's been those 6 teams have been the ones that have, I think at least, the juice to win it all. I do still put the Cowboys in that group because I think they have that kind of upside. I think Dak Prescott is a quarterback who can go on that kind of tear. So despite the fact they're, I think, 6th in that tier, I do still think they are closer to this tier than the tier below them. But the other 5 are the other 5, and I feel pretty good about all those. If I'm betting the futures market, I pretty much need to stick in that bracket unless I'm getting a massive discount. I want to stick with one of these big 6 teams. And one team where we are getting a massive discount, I think, at least, while still being in this bracket, is actually on the Cincinnati Bengals at +750. Now, there is risk here because if Lamar Jackson winds up playing this week, their odds of losing the first round do go up. And I still like the Ravens a lot. If you give me Lamar Jackson in this game, that could be very interesting. But right now, if I assume Lamar does not go, and I've got kind of a hedge in my model right now to kind of try to account for the fact that Lamar could play, their odds he does play. But right now, I've got the Bengals favored by 8.3 against the Ravens, and the Bengals favored by 9.0, depending on the model. The better model is one that has them at 9 points, assuming kind of a hybrid of Tyler Huntley and Lamar Jackson. So that means, I could wind up adding Bengals later on. Like if Lamar doesn't practice Wednesday, I'm locking in. If I can get 6.5 still at that point, I take it. And if I can get 7, I would take it at that point too, because I'd be showing value there if I go full Huntley versus hybrid of Lamar and Huntley. So if Lamar Jackson misses practice Wednesday, I will be betting the Bengals as long as I can still get it at 7 or shorter. So if Lamar does play, there is risk here. But this is also kind of a bet about the second round, because if the Bengals win in the first round, they're probably facing the Bills on the road. Now, we just saw this matchup. We at least analyzed this matchup prior to the DeMar Hamlin game last week. And in that game, I had the Bengals money line. They were at home. And it was, at the time, I think they were -104, I believe, on the money line for that game. So, it was a situation where we were getting some leniency in betting the Bengals. But to me, what that says is that my model thinks the Bengals are closer to the Bills than the market does. And I think that's important when analyzing the futures market and looking at that potential second round matchup. So I know my numbers will probably like the Bengals in that matchup. Maybe not straight up with the game being in Buffalo. I think Buffalo would be favored there. They are first in one of my power rankings, but I think that I will like them relative to the market in that game, and I can get more upside by potentially taking +750 here. And we've already seen the Bengals beat the Chiefs once. They beat them in Kansas City last year in the AFC Championship game. So those are all pluses for them as we look at their path towards the Super Bowl. This offense, they changed their scheme back in week 5. We talked about it a couple of times here on the show. And in week 5, they struggled. Week 18, they struggled as well. Both those games against the same Ravens defense. But I still feel like this is an offense we are underrating right now with the way they're playing. A lot of that sample, after they changed their offense, came with no Jamar Chase. T. Higgins missed a couple of games in there, didn't play largely in a couple of games in that span as well. So the Bengals +750, the Chiefs +330, the Bills +420. The Bengals have the longest odds of any of the big 6 who will play a home game in the first round. I think they're better than that. So if I'm looking at the futures market right now, the Bengals to win the Super Bowl at +750 is the one that catches my attention the most. So it's enough to the point where I'm going to make sure I have a Super Bowl future before kickoff on Sunday on the Bengals. That may lengthen if Lamar comes back. So I think that the Bengals -6.5 is correlated with this. If you get a read that Lamar will not play, I'd lock in both immediately to get them before they move even more towards the Bengals. If Lamar may play, I'd hold off on betting the Bengals, the Super Bowl future, until we get closer to kickoff for that game, because we'll probably see the spread tighten at that point, which would obviously translate to Super Bowl odds too. So keep an eye on the Ravens injury report on Wednesday. If Lamar Jackson does wind up practicing, then hold off. If Lamar winds up practicing, hold off. If he doesn't practice, I'd leave both for the Super Bowl future for the Bengals at +750 and on the spread at -6.5. You can get there. I just think overall this Bengals team is really good. I think they're undervalued right now. I think this offense, it has supernova capability. So I'm going to be on the Bengals some way, both this week in the postseason. It was good to cash that AFC North ticket as well for them. So Bengals have been a good team to us, and I think that they could continue to be a good team to us as we get further on into the postseason. So that's where we're at for right now. Again, lock in the Bengals, +750 at some point this week, and the Bengals spread against the Ravens if we get no Lamar practice on Wednesday. Other stuff, Jags money line +104, the Bucks +3 at -115, and the under 45.5 for Bucks Cowboys at -110. Now, I'm hoping we can carry over what went down last week on the show to this week. We'll go into a recap of last week right now. Again, back if you want to check out for this part, back once again tomorrow, talk some PGA and NBA with Brandon Gadula, and NBA on Wednesday as well. And the full NFL preview is on Thursday. But last week, our best week of the show yet. We had Ryan Williams in the show on Thursday, and Ryan swept the board. You can find him on Twitter at @RyanAlexander_W. The baby narrative, obviously in play for handicappers as well. So obviously Ryan's son is helping us out here, getting good mojo on the show. Ryan went 5-0 in his recommendations on Thursday's show. I was 2-1, and the lone loss between the two of us was the one where we went head to head. Ryan had the Titans +6. I had the Jags -6, and the Jags won that game by 4. So Ryan won that one. I got the loss. Other ones for Ryan were the Bengals at -7. He had the Broncos -2.5. I had the Dolphins money line to even money. That was before Mike White got ruled out. Then we both had the Lions on Sunday night, +4.5 for me. Ryan said he wanted to wait until after the Seahawks game to see if that market would shift more towards the Packers. And I think it did. I think I saw 5.5 at one point. So we did see more movement towards the Packers there. I took it at 4.5 because my thought process was the Seahawks lose this game, it could also shorten. So I thought it was being properly accounted for in the market, and I wanted to lock it in case the Seahawks did wind up losing. The points didn't matter because the Lions won that game outright. Ryan had under 49.5 in that same game. That one hit easily. I think there was 36 total points in that game. So honestly, heck of a way for Ryan to go out in the regular season. Great job by him all year. And I feel good about how my numbers did, how they tested, and it was good to get some good results with them as well. Because overall, I've been down this year, which is annoying, but the numbers back testing well. It's good when you can finally translate that into good results. So that felt good for sure. But Ryan is on Twitter at @RyanAlexander_W. We'll talk to him on Thursday to get his read on these wild card games. Our guest on the prop show this week was Tom Vecchio. Check him out on Twitter at @DFS_Tom. Tom had both of his touchdown recommendations for this week. Those were Christian Kirk at +210 and Stephon Diggs at +115. Diggs, a huge touchdown. Kirk, he also had over 59.5 receiving yards in that game on Saturday night. The misses for Tom were Kenny Pickett over 195.5 passing yards. Pickett at 195. Off by a half yard. That's tough. But other one was Juju Smith-Schuster over 54.5 receiving yards. He went under that one. So 3-2 for Tom, but two of the hits were +210 and +115. So really just an awesome week for the podcast. It was our best week yet, and I'm happy for it to go out that way for the regular season. But again, feeling pretty good about the postseason as well. We'll have all of our regular content here on the show throughout the weeks to get you set for the postseason action. Hopefully that can propel us towards a good postseason to finish things out. That is all that we have here for today, though. As mentioned, big week this week. PGA NBA with Brandon Gadula tomorrow. NBA with Tom Vecchio Wednesday. Ryan Williams back Thursday to talk NFL. And then our prop show coming up on Friday. To get all those as they are posted, make sure you are subscribed to Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcasts, and also check us out over on the FanDuel YouTube page if you want to watch a video version there as well. If you've got any questions for me, I am on Twitter at Jim Sannes, JimSannes. You can also follow the FanDuel Podcast Network at FanDuel Podcast. I want to thank you all for tuning in for today. Good luck to you as you place your bets for the wild card round. May the CLV be in your favor. We'll talk to you once again tomorrow to break down some PGA and NBA. This has been Covering the Spread right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network.